Thank you. Please prepare your questions, and I'm sure that I'm not going to answer any question. All the questions are going to be directed to him. So if you ask me, I'm just moderating this event. I don't know much. All the questions are going to be directed to him. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Your company has been in Nigeria for a very long time. I just want to start from that before we go into the main issue. What has been the story, and what are the things that other business leaders can learn from your company? You've expanded, you've gone into various sectors, various industries of the economy. So what can we learn from your company?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks very much, FSDH Bank, for having me here today, this morning. Like, I've come from a company, I work with a company called Tolaram Group. Like, people may not be knowing it by Tolaram, but they would definitely know a brand called Indomie. So we are the manufacturer of this brand called Indomie. And that was the first brand which we introduced back there in 1990s, right? And after that, we have ventured into multiple JVs. Like, we have entered into JVs with likes of Kellogg's. So all the Kellogg noodles or Kellogg cornflakes which you eat over here is something which is manufactured by us in our factory. Then we also entered into our JV with Colgate. So all the toothpaste, the Colgate toothpaste and toothbrush which you guys use is manufactured by us over here. We also make Dano milk in our JV with Arla, which is again a Danish company, which is the third largest manufacturer of the milk in the world. Right, and like we know that what we are here discussing is the recent changes, and one of the very major change was the exchange rate. So Nigeria, or for that matter, most of the countries in Africa continent, they have been facing this crunch of FX time and again, right? So we as a company, what we have done over time is we have always worked towards doing a backward integration. Like when we started with noodles, like the most important raw material which you need for noodles is flour. So we were importing flour initially, then we backward integrated and we entered into our own milling of wheat. Today, as we speak, we have 4 flour mills across the country. And then after the noodles are made, you need oil, the vegetable oil, which you need to make to refine it. So we started with our own refinery. So now we make vegetable oil into our own refinery. Once the noodle is made, then you need to wrap it up, the wrappers. So then we entered into the backward integration of flexible packaging as well, which is again there in the free zone, right? After that, once the noodles are made and you have 40 packs, you need to pack it in the carton. So very recently is when we have entered into this model of corrugated packaging. So from this month, we will be making the cartons as well. So this is all the backward integration. And now once the product is made, since we are into FMCG primarily, most important factor for an FMCG is the distribution part. Now, we decided that we will be owning our own distribution. So if you see, we have around 2,300 trucks of our own and some 2,200 vans of our own. And we take care of our own distribution as well as the sub-distribution across the country. And that primarily has worked as a backbone for the country, for the company wherever it is right now. Then if you talk about some other segments, like we are also into infrastructure. So Legos Free Zone, which is what it is known as, that belongs to us. So we are the 100% owner of Legos Free Zone. And most of our factories and some of the other third-party factories are also there in that zone. And recently, early this year, like the biggest port of Western Africa was inaugurated by our ex-Prime Minister. So that Lekki port is also which has been done by us. So it is between Lagos state government, us and Chinese is what we hold the port. So this port is going to be, we personally feel that it's going to bring revolution into this country because this is a deep sea port. It is around 16.5 meter deep against what we have currently, which is around 11.5, 12 meter deep. So even the biggest vessel of the world can come and can berth over there. So this is how, what we have done over the period, starting with one small brand of Indomie, then taking it to a $500 million brand as we speak. It is contributing around $500 million to our top line. And then eventually venturing into multiple sectors. Now, to answer your question, like what we have always focused, to achieve success, and what I learned from my, the CXOs or people who were there and who have run this company and is responsible for what it is right now, it works on 3 A's. Once it is availability. Now, availability, when I say it is availability of raw material. Now, every raw material, like there are challenges around the port, there are challenges around the berthing and all. That is when we entered into this port segment, and we always ensured, even during the last 3 years of pandemic, there was not even a single day that where our factory was shut because of the unavailability of raw material. So we always ensured that this raw material is always available, so we are able to make our product, noodles, Indomie, or whatever it is, and can serve the country all the time, right? Second important thing is affordability. You need to make, or you need to continue innovate items like wherein you ensure that your product are made in an affordable manner. So at one place where it is good for your tummy, it is very good for your pocket as well. And that last but not the least is accessibility. Like if you have made a product, but if it is not available in the market where you're going, then it doesn't make sense for an FMCG company. And that is the reason the availability product, and that is where our distribution and sub-distribution, which I spoke about, played a very, very key role, that our product, as we speak, is available in almost every corner of the country. So these are the 3 A's is what we always work on and we thrive on.
Thank you very much, and then congratulations, and thank you for the good work you have done in Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
You've created a lot of job opportunities for people, grow the economy, and also invested in infrastructure. A lot of people in Ibejuleki area will be thanking you because some of them, their plot of land were 300,000 before today, maybe 50 million because of your activity. Thank you very much. So let's go into fuel subsidy. I'm sure a lot of private sector operators, prior to the election, they had been clamoring for the removal because of inefficiencies that were inherent in that. So how is it affecting your business, and what are you reacting to it? And I'm sure, I mean, we were buying fuel for 148 naira per liter, but now over 488 naira, the lowest that we're selling. So what are you doing? Do you think it's good for your business? What opportunities do you see there? What do you think government should be doing as perhaps palliatives? And how internally are you responding to some of the agitations that may be coming out from your distributors, even from your employees?
Sure. So before that, like if you go into the history of this fuel subsidy, right? In Nigeria, it started in some 1970s. That was started with an intention to curb the impact of the global oil pricing curve at that point of time, oil pricing shock which we are having. But in late 1970s, like there was, because of the Price Control Act, there was a rule which was dictated that okay, it will be illegal to sell certain raw material or certain product, including this petrol, above a certain stipulated time. But the intention, if you see behind this fuel subsidy, was always to help the people who are there at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, a recent study, it has shown that 40% of the people at the bottom of the income distribution, they are using only 3% of the fuel. And that fuel is also more skewed towards kerosene as well as diesel, which was deregularized long back, ages back rather, right? And if I have to put some numbers into perspective, then over the last 9 years, Nigerian government has spent some 11.4 trillion naira in fuel subsidy. And when I am compared with this fuel subsidy with investment into other sectors like education or healthcare, it was barely 4 trillion and 6 trillion taken together in the last 11 years, in the last 9 years rather. And then if I see only the last year, which is 2022, the number what it says is that the total subsidy which the government has spent on subsidy basically is around $10.5 billion is what we have. So it's no-brainer that this fuel subsidy should have been removed long back itself, right? And the benefit or the savings which the government is making because of this subsidy, that should directly or indirectly should go to the people who are in need of that. For example, maybe increasing the minimum wage, like it has not increased in ages now. So that is something which needs to be increased. Maybe like a direct credit into their account, because some of the developed or the developing countries are already doing it, that people who are below poverty line, they are given some subsidy directly into their bank account. Obviously, it requires a lot of hard work on the banking side because still around 50% of the people are underbanked or unbanked in Nigeria. But that is something how it should be done. When I talk about business, yes, definitely it's going to impact most of the business out here in Nigeria, as it is going to increase your cost overall. And the inflation, I'm sure in the next 2 to 3 months, we will see that it is hitting the roof, right? But that's on the short-term side. If I have to see the long-term part of it, because in this condition, what I am saying on the increasing inflation and the reducing disposable income for the country, the first thing which I am proposing about how we can help people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, right? That if that is taken care of, then probably the consumption side for the country as a whole will not be impacted that much. But if I have to, this is on the manufacturing side that we have. But if you see in the long run, right, currently Nigeria is facing a huge deficit, revenue deficit. And that is, a major contribution of that revenue deficit is coming from this oil subsidy. So once this oil subsidy is removed, right, probably it is going to reduce your revenue deficit. If you are reducing your revenue deficit, that means lesser amount of borrowing, which you will be doing as a country. Less borrowing is less, a better balance of payment account, and then it will improve the rating for the country as a whole globally. And that is what will help us attract more FDIs and FPIs inflows into the country. This is more on the monetary side, but there is also a moral side which we all should be focusing on. So if you see, eventually all the countries in the world will have to aim towards becoming a carbon and then a zero carbon emission country. And we as a country, like our country has already proposed that we are aiming 2060 to be a net zero carbon country, emission country. And this fuel subsidy removal, in one way, it will also discourage the usage of this fuel, and it will also help or push or rather force government and other companies as well to invest or to start focusing on more renewable, green and clean energy.
Okay, thank you very much. You seem to be very optimistic about the outlook of the Nigerian economy. And of course, there is no way you can put in the amount of money you've put in here without being optimistic. My admonition to you is that please, this same optimism, this message, please preach it abroad and let the FDIs that you talk about, let them begin to come in. So let me...
Just to answer your question, our company is headquartered in Singapore, right? And we have already invested more than $600 million into the company.
Great.
And then we are employing some 20,000 people over here. So we are really gung-ho about it. We are really gung-ho about this country. With the kind of demographic population it has, like it's some around 43% people with less than 15 years of age. So it has huge potential in the coming years. Where China was earlier, where India is right now, like this is where Nigeria is going to be in the next 15 to 20 years.
Thank you very much. You have done well, but you can do more. Please, we want more. So let's go into the exchange rate. It's not all the times that exchange rate, the valuation of the currency used to be 470, but now at 700. For economics, they will tell you that when you have such an exchange rate at this level, it can help to boost export. But then Nigerians still import a lot of things. So how do you think businesses should respond to the current exchange rate regime to perhaps adopt import substitution? One of the things that I know is that the current exchange rate price will make a lot of imported commodities more expensive in other times, valued at 400 before, but now 700. Now, so how are you then also, so it may likely reduce importation, but how do you respond to that as business owner in terms of import substitution, producing those things, and then what are the challenges you see in that area, and then how do you think it will also help to boost export?
Sure. So, as we say that there is fuel subsidy and fuel subsidy has been removed, if you ask few of the analysts, they would say there was a forex subsidy as well all these while. So that subsidy has also been removed right now. So it was needed. It was the need of the hour, which should have been done. But it is definitely because increasing the exchange rate or devaluation of naira will increase the import cost. And that is going to impact the manufacturing units, manufacturing companies in a big way. And because it's going to increase the cost of their raw material which they are importing, because it's not available out here in Nigeria to the quality or to the quantity they need for their company, right? But again, if I have to see the long run impact, right? So for now, what we have been seeing in Nigeria in the last 2 to 3 years is there has been huge disparity between the official market rate and so-called the parallel market rate, right? This particular free float of naira will definitely reduce the disparity between this one, the parallel rate and the official rate, and this will definitely attract the FDIs and FPIs investment, because now they will have a seamless access to the market over here at a competitive rate. But having said that, like, I should also mention that there is always a lag between when the government is implementing an excellent reform like this and when actually the FDIs and FPIs gain the confidence and start infusing the money into the country. During this lag time, this time period, it is very important for the countries or for the entities like CBN, Central Bank, to come regularly, participate into this IND market and ensure that there is enough liquidity over there in the IND market for the imports which the country is doing, obviously to manufacture and to make products for the people out here. Now that particular lag is, if it is not fulfilled and if this illiquidity scenario continues, then again it will start putting pressure on the parallel market rates and it will take it north. And the IND rate, which is at around 750 at the moment, it will become more of a paper rate itself, and there will be nothing happening on that. In terms of exports, like you are right, in this particular scenario, there are two major steps which a company can take. One, either you increase the export, or secondly, you reduce your imports, or you have an import substitution in other manner. In increasing the export, there are some very classic examples which I really feel proud when I talk about Nigeria in other countries whenever I'm visiting, right? So one classic example is on the fertilizer front, right? Now, if you see agriculture overall for the country, it contributes around 27% to the total GDP of the country. But if you see the usage of fertilizer, which we as a Nigerian are using, it is around 20 kg per hectare is what we are using. And this is against a global average of around 146 kg per hectare by all the other countries. That's the average, right? So now this investment by companies like Dangote and Indorama into this segment of fertilizer will not only ensure that there are more usage of fertilizer by the farmers out here in the country, which in turn will increase the productivity of our agriculture product, and will also help us increase our GDP one end. And anything additional of that on the fertilizer front can again be exported to have more forex income coming into the country as a whole. So that's an excellent step, and I really feel proud about saying that companies like Dangote and Indorama has taken that step. Now, if I have to talk about the import substitution part, right, that's again a very, very important, because Nigeria overall has been an import-driven economy only, right? And it will be a very long shot if we have to say that, we will increase our exports overnight and all. That's not possible at all, right? But in terms of import substitution, one of the things which we as a company from Tolaram are doing is like palm fruits or palm oil, right? Nigeria, people will argue that Nigeria is already producing palm oil, right? But if I have to put numbers into perspective, like we produce around 750,000 metric ton of palm oil every year, whereas we are consuming around 1.2 million metric ton. Right? So there is a gap. So we'll always be a net importer. So we as a company, and we have our refinery of our own, and wherein we are refining oil and converting into a vegetable oil. Power Oil is our brand, which you must have seen over there in the shop, those market. Now, in the last 4 to 5 years, we have also invested into farming. So we have taken around 22,000 hectares of land over there in Edo State. We are growing palm fruits over there. So that palm fruits, already the gestation period of around 3.5 years are gone, and we have already started seeing the fruits coming out of it. Now we are in the process of building our oil crushing mill over there in Edo State, so that those fruits can be taken, converted into oil, and the part of that oil, where that oil can be supplied to our refinery. So that will reduce some of the imports which we have been doing as a country, and will definitely reduce the burden for the country as a whole. And then second example, if I have to give, cassava. Again, see, I am a person who thinks more from the left side of my brain, so I always talk about numbers. So, so cassava, if you see, like Nigeria as a country produce around 62 million metric ton of cassava every year. To your surprise, what we are consuming internally is 35 million metric ton only. And the rest is not something which we are exporting. The rest is something which goes waste. And that is because we don't have a proper storage facility, right? So we started growing cassava, and what we are doing with cassava is that we are making flour out of cassava. And that flour is what we are using to replace usage of wheat, which we do in our noodle production. So at one way, like when we cannot control the import of wheat, because there is a certain quality of wheat which we prefer, which is not grown in Nigeria, because it's a coastal in nature. So in this way, what we are trying to do is we are reducing our wheat import and we are replacing it with something which is produced locally. So that is what we are doing.
Thank you very much. Our time is fast spent, but I will ask the last question just quickly. But before I ask that last question, I want to make a special appeal, and I'm sure I'm speaking for nearly everyone in this room and all our participants online. And the special appeal is that you have said the outlook of the economy is strong. The current challenges is just temporary. I want to appeal to you not to increase the price of Indomie. Allow the, I don't expect you to expound to me. Just take it forward. Okay. No, don't respond.
Sir,
allow your profit margin to reduce a little bit. We are paying a lot for a lot of things now. Things have gone up. We have to transport ourselves. So please have mercy on us. Okay. So the last question is, what are the specific things you think the federal government policies need to implement? I'm aware that the President Buhari hasn't formed his cabinet. We should. President Tinubu hasn't formed his cabinet, as is picking people to man various ministries. What specific policies do you think they need to implement that will grow your business more and will also be attractive to other people to remain in Nigeria and then for more businesses to come? Just in 1 minute.
Well, again, if you see the history of any developed country or any developing country which is there right now, right, there are few sectors which are very, very important that a government should focus on. Where should they invest? The first and foremost is infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, it is proper roads, proper real estate, power supply. Right? This will definitely attract some of the foreign companies, not just invest into the country by investing in the stock market or the bonds or, to get interest out of it, but actually coming and setting up their facility over here, right? Second important thing is investment into healthcare. Because whenever, if you want US or European people to come over here, they would definitely, first thing which they would want is there is a proper healthcare setup over here. So that is an investment which is required not just to take care of the expatriates, but also for the local Nigerians over here so that we have a proper healthy life. Third is like the education. When you have more people coming in, then obviously you would want more Nigerian. Instead of going out and settling down, you need to retain the talent over here itself. And for that, you need to create opportunities for them. So if you have a good education background, then probably these people will always look for local talent whenever they are coming and they are establishing their unit over here, right? That is what we are doing. If you see as a group, like we employ some around 20,000 people, right? And in 20,000 people, not even there are 500 expatriates. Most of it are local only. So more than 19,000 local employees itself, right? So this is what we are doing. And last but not the least, the problem which we have been facing is on the security front. So that is very, very important that whenever you establish, at least you have some comfort from the government side that, boss, you run, whatever you want to do for the country, you do, we will take care of the security part along with you, obviously. So that is something which is very, very important.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I should allow for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Participants. Any questions? We still have other sessions. So even, okay, sir.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question on your Lekki Free Trade Zone. If you've invested so much in such an infrastructure, why haven't you invested or worked with the government to to invest in the evacuation infrastructure for that free trade zone? That's the first question. And then you say that you're backward integrated, and it appears that you're doing it yourself. Why is that more optimal than maybe having relationships with contractors to do the work which you're setting up companies to do yourself?
So I'll answer the second question first, basically, right? I'll give you one very classic example. I mentioned that we have entered into this backward integration of producing the corrugated, the cartons. The reason behind entering into this was when COVID started, right? We reached to a point, there was no supply of paper and there was no cartons which were available. We reached to a point that we had to stop selling our products because there was no cartons which was available, right? Just to answer your question, it is not just on the monetary front that, okay, you have to see the job work or establishing your own factory, but it is very important that you have a very solid control on the supply in both in terms of quality as well as on the quantity part. So that's the reason we always believe when we are doing a backward integration, we have a full control on it and we know how to run it, the quality which we want for our end product which the consumer consumes. Very good. Very important. So control more on the supply side, that whenever we need, we have that in place, and more on the quality, because we never compromise on quality. So that is important for us. On the free zone side, again, like this free zone is there with us for the last 20 years or so when we did it. And the initially thought was that we'll be producing some methane gas or something like over there. But then it did not work around. And then we thought that since we have a, a sea nearby, and that is how the idea generated, that the new factories which we are in, and even not just us, lot of the external third-party companies are also coming. So that if we have a port next to it, that is when the evacuation, or you can have products coming in, and you can again export from the same port immediately. So that was primarily the reason of having both the free zone and port next to each other. So if I have to give it is our free zone is around 850 hectares, and within that 850 hectares, the 90 hectares is the port. I won't say it was an oversight, because we have seen Apapa, right? There was no road over there, not proper road over there, and that's the reason the traffic or the congestion which you face over there is there. So it was always in the place. But when we came out with the thought that we'll be building the biggest PPP port in Nigeria, of the biggest of the Western Africa, nobody believed us. And that is when it was inaugurated or that. If you have been to this free zone recently, you would see there's a lot of construction which is going on, both on the road side as well as otherwise. Okay. So there is something which is happening on the road side too.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much, Mr. Deepak. Please let's put our hands together for him.